That's actually perfect.
All right.
Okay, perfect angle right now.
Okay.
And then... So welcome to the first episode of the Humanitree podcast. Eddy is the head of a development studio in Taipei. The team is called Exantra Team. Exantra Team, which that was the original name of the project.
Right.
I'm actually going to take my mask off because
Okay, I'll take mine off too.
I think I've been wearing this one for the past few days. And around Taipei, probably about 70%-ish of people are wearing masks because of the ongoing coronavirus. There's only like 11 cases here in Taiwan, which is pretty much the same as the US, which is awesome. But people are still taking care because we're close proximity to China. This is a really interesting time to be in Taipei, and I'm really glad that we're doing this conversation.
Me too.
Because it's like a connection back to like what we grew up on. So like we grew up on video games and like
Halo.
being immersed. Yeah, Halo. So Halo was the first game that we actually played together.
Right.
And I remember you talking about this like it was like some game that you played in your backyard or something. And then you showed me what it actually was, and then like I was like hooked. I mean, Halo, for those who don't know, is a first-person shooter. This was like what built up the Xbox. This is what made people want to buy an Xbox.
Yep.
And then of course Halo 2 came out, and everybody's playing multiplayer, and you know the rest is history, so to speak.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting that you follow the path of game development. And so how did we get here? Like, how did we get to now you're 4 years into this project?
Actually, more.
More,
Yeah.
Okay. 5 years.
But I don't share with everyone.
Okay, so, but of course you probably started working on concept art.
Yeah. Way early.
Or other pieces like way before actually funding the project and thinking about like, you know, how to actually monetize it and all of those pieces.
Right.
You probably have been working on it for quite some time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I was a dreamer before I was a business guy. And I've been dreaming, I think it started out in 2011.
2011.
If you do the math, it's like 9 years.
That's such a long time ago.
Yeah.
And on your Instagram, which we're gonna post a link to the Alter Titan Instagram, that's the only Instagram that you have for this?
That's the one we're using right now.
Okay, and it's managed by a community manager, so the development team doesn't actually manage it, which I think is kind of cool. You guys have a separate community management that actually goes and kind of is more connected to the people that are actually playing the game.
Exactly. They've got a pulse on what the players are doing, how they're behaving, and we're just getting the information from them. Right.
And then of course you're adjusting the sort of features that you're developing, the bug fixes that you're doing based on the feedback that comes from the community.
Exactly.
Which is actually, this is a very important way to actually develop a game, is based around a community, because you have a user base and you're trying to build that user base.
Mm-hmm.
Of course you want to make the people happy that are primarily playing the game, because that's who your target audience is. That's who you're ultimately making this project for.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense to take feedback from them. At the same time, you have probably features that you've been working on or advertising or showcasing to people that are interested in the project, both investors and potential players that, you know, want to start playing this game, playing it with their friends. Can you talk about that process and like how do you find the balance between taking features from the community versus taking features from like say like people that are funding the project?
That's a really good question.
Because there's two sides to it, right? There's like the people that they think like, oh, this is what's going to build up the user base, and then the community has their take,
opinions.
their take on that too,
Yeah.
as far as what appeals to them.
Right.
And there's a lot of different opinions. So how do you kind of how do you curate those opinions from both the development, like maybe there's stuff that the developers want too. Like how do you field all those different opinions, and whose do you value? It's going to be contextual, but like maybe you can say like whose opinion you would sort of take for like first and foremost.
Right. Man, that's a good question.
How do you find the balance between taking input from all these different avenues?
I know there are different ways of doing it, and different game studios prioritize opinions from like customers differently than the community, than non-paid customers. There's definitely not, I don't think there's a right way of doing it, but depending on what stage we're in, we do it like a certain way. Like right now, I'll tell you honestly, I've got my own intuition of what the product's gonna be like. So my opinion is gonna come from the top, and no one can question it because I'm the boss.
Right.
No, that's not why. It's because we actually built a predecessor before Ultra Titan.
Yeah.
It was an MVP, and we shipped it to actual customers. The beta lasted for, it's still going on right now, but it lasted for 2 years. First day, we had 500 installs. Do you know how many we have now?
How many?
Way less. We've got like 30 players now. From
Really?
500 to 30 players. Guys, if you're an investor and you're listening to this, just close your ears right now, because this is a negative red flag. But I'll tell you one positive thing that came from this was we learned so much about what we have to build for this version. Yeah. And like what we gotta avoid.
But I mean, if you guys know anything about like social media or building a YouTube channel, it's like you always get that big influx of people when something is new. Like the newest information is always the most relevant, and then the relevance always tends to die out. And this happens with games too. It's not just YouTube videos or Instagram posts or whatever. It's also games as well. It's like people get really excited about the game. There's a huge demand for it, and then the people come in, and then they either kind of get what they want and they stick around, or they leave. And that is like the
natural
like life cycle of games in that. But it's of course like getting that huge influx of players initially is so important. Like for example, like think about Pokemon Go, like how long that lasted, and it was because there were so many people playing it. It was constantly like recirculating through like whether it's social media or people just talking about it, like having people actually talk about what the game is so important. Like, is this something we can have a conversation about? Is a really important thing. I mean, I think it really goes for anything in software, because the system can become so complex, or it can become the waters can be muddied as far as what the intent is for the game or a given system.
There's a lot of noise that you have to sift through and filter.
Yes.
Coming in and going out from your developers, coming in from the community. So you gotta have a strong filter.
And I think I think the big question is like, how do you get those people coming back? Like for example, like I played a game called Smite, which is it's similar to
MOBA.
It's a MOBA. It's a third person MOBA.
Right.
And it's like, would you consider going back to that game? And for me, I would go and read the recent reviews on Steam, because the game launched on Steam, which I actually think brought in a much larger player base and actually kind of diluted the quality of the players and the community.
Right.
And I would read reviews and people would say, well, this is now like a casual game, like there's no competitive side to this. And that was kind of what made it fun for me, was having that competitive side to it. Right. But then also like you could drift off into like playing the casual stuff as well if you wanted to. And it just me before I went back to actually playing it, I would read the reviews, and the reviews said, this is not a good community, they're not managing things properly like they were before, and that deterred me from actually going back to the game. So I think there's absolutely, especially in social games, there's always an ability to bring a player base back. I think it's entirely possible, and it involves having that balance, especially for like such a social game, or a game that is like more focused on what the experience is. Like Smite, it's like or a MOBA, it's like, okay, we're gonna start out and we're going to you're gonna go jungle, or we're gonna attack these camps. Like it's a pretty like similar strategy most of the time. Right. It's just kind of how it plays out. Yeah. So in those circumstances, I think it's like if you make a solid experience, like people want to come back.
Provided that they haven't found something else.
Yes, to replace that. But I think in this case, I don't think there's a lot of games that are taking this approach of the approach that you're taking of like this, like going out into the actual world. It's like an augmented reality in this case, where you're going out into the real world and doing fitness activities. Think of what was this other game where you had to go and tag points in the real world? Do you know what I'm talking about? It was another augmented reality game, and you had to go and...
Was it Ingress?
Yes, Ingress. That's exactly what it was.
Made by Niantic as well.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting, because that's very interesting. So Pokemon Go and Ingress made by the same company. So then, like, how do you kind of appeal to that same player base? Because that player base is out there that wants that augmented reality type games. And how do you appeal to those people and make them feel like a sense of familiarity with the game that's being played, but then also, of course, you're crafting your own lore. This is its own intellectual property. Yeah. Have you thought about addressing that player base and trying to pull them in and appeal to them?
Actually, not Ingress specifically, but we've thought about the Pokemon Go player base.
Okay.
Yeah. Right now, honestly, we're not focusing on those guys.
Okay.
What we say that we're focusing on right now are the people who have this dialogue. I hate working out, but I love video games. Those are our target audience. I don't know who they are yet, but that's just kind of the wide net we're casting right now.
Got you.
And if you fall in that umbrella, you're one of our target users.
What if there's also people like myself, like I love working out, and I also love video games.
You're even better, because from our last test, Exantra World, those guys were at the top of the leaderboard. People like you.
Okay.
You love video games and you love working out. So it's almost a guarantee that you're gonna be sticking around for us. Yeah. So that's a good point.
And actually, on that point. So I'm a triathlete. For those who don't know, I'm a triathlete, and I do swimming, biking, running. That's what actually drew me to Taiwan. There's so many climbs here that you can do. There's the Taiwan KOM, which is a 3,000 meter climb, 3,200 meter climb, over 100 kilometers. There's the Three Peaks Challenge, which is 2,600 meters climb over 75 kilometers. There's a lot of different cycling.
That's how you got your injuries, right?
This is from Taroko.
Oh, Taroko.
Yeah. What was I gonna say?
Three Peaks climb. There's a lot.
Right. So there's a lot of different ways that you can build up your fitness out here as it relates to run, bike, swim. There's tons of public pools out here, which is amazing. If you guys want to train for triathlon and you also want to travel at the same time, come to Taipei.
Wear masks.
But maybe it might be difficult in a pool. But so as a triathlete, like how can you explain very briefly how I would use the game and how because here's another thing, and because I think maybe there's some universes that you don't realize that you're crossing into. For example, Strava. Do you know what Strava is?
I do.
Okay, so you know what's okay. Good. You know what Strava is. Thumbs up. Nice job. Okay.
He's an avid user. I can tell already.
Okay. Yes, because Strava gives you a lot of metrics. It tells you whether your fitness level is increasing. It gives you relative effort based on your heart rate, and based on your max heart rate, your heart rate zones, and also shows you your pace zones for running, which is very useful because it means if you're having an easy day, you stay within this pace zone. If you're going for a more threshold-based workout, or you're trying to push your fast pace, then you play around in this zone. So knowing those zones is very important, and how much effort you're putting out, whether you should take a little bit of step back and recover a little bit. Those metrics are very important, and I think that people, if they had those metrics within an app that was gamified, I think that it would also be valuable because it helped them work on the fitness side. Yeah. So obviously there's the character development and character building side. Yeah. That's very focused on the game side. But what about the component which is more in line with Strava, which is like the fitness score? Like how do you actually incorporate in that game? Is that something you thought about? Is that something that you're thinking about now because you think that maybe it's something that would be valuable?
Now that Mike's mentioned it, I am thinking about it now.
Okay.
The 5 different zones. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not so important for weightlifting because you're going to find that you're going to stay within a pretty low heart rate as you're weightlifting. Right. But if you're doing running or cycling mostly, swimming is going to be indoors for the most part. Which those are activities that people in Taiwan do quite a bit of, is running and biking, specifically biking. You're going to be able to find people that are around you, and you're also going to be able to learn how to boost your fitness score. Right. Also keep in mind, Strava I think is fairly popular out here. I don't know if it's widespread.
No, not yet.
Okay, but this is definitely an app that could appeal to people that would use Strava. Yeah. And also, having those integrations, you can have integrations with Strava and get people's fitness data from there. Now they can start building their fitness using your app, and you've got all the data that's coming from Strava.
Yeah,
that's an idea that you can use, obviously.
We can.
And I think it would allow people to shift into this user base. Right. So there's a fun side to it, and then there's also hey, I'm actually getting more fit. Yeah. The app is kind of doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Right.
So it sounds like that's something that
we're looking at that, definitely.
That's something that you're interested in doing. We've also, another feature we talked about is this idea of a friend radar. And now this is something that WeChat is making use of in their app. It basically is going to show you people that are within range of you that are on WeChat. Mm-hmm. And this is really valuable for connecting with people around you. You can start a conversation with people just by the fact that, like, hey, you use this app and you're part of this user base, and like those people actually connect to each other. Yeah. And this to me is more in line with what a community actually is people that have social interaction with one another. If anybody has read Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari, book I strongly recommend, goes through, it's a synopsis of human history, and he defines a community as a group of people who the majority interact with each other, and people do things for each other without expecting anything in return. Mm. So this is, to me, the foundation of a community, and basically, hey, you're using the same app. If we go and work out together, then hey, that's like bonus for both of us. Like that's that's a win. And then we also get like the social interaction as well.
Yeah. We as human beings, we need that connection so much, more
Yeah.
than we realize. Actually, my biggest struggle with going to the gym isn't like a lack of motivation or like results really. It's just a lack of accountability. Having that buddy like wake up and text me, Eddie, we gotta go today because there's an event, or oh hey man, I saw that your Titan's he's shrinking, or he's starting to get fat around his belly. Get your butt to the gym with me today.
Yeah.
Having that accountability and human connection is something we don't have as much today, unless you're like you're part of a fitness group, which you were part of.
Right. Yeah. And calisthenics, I'll talk about that a little bit. Yeah, that was the most powerful community that I've been a part of and maybe ever be a part of. The energy there's such an intensity around what's being done. It's very exciting. It also requires patience as well, because you're going to build your skill really slowly, but you're also going to get full body fit, and you're going to get like your recovery is really good when you're doing these bodyweight exercises, because you're getting a bigger range of motion. You're not overusing one group of muscles. It's really great. And then, I mean, also just going out to the park. And this is something that I value that I saw in this app when we started talking about it, is that, hey, you can actually go to the park and meet people at the park, and also talk to them about using this app if, that would encourage them more to go to the calisthenics park. There's plenty of calisthenics parks around Taipei especially.
Exactly.
And people can go start making use of these parks. Maybe it would encourage more parks. Maybe it would encourage the local government or whatever to invest more money into these parks, because people are actually going out and using them. And maybe at these calisthenics parks, you can put special power-ups or whatever around the different parks.
Different stops, like focus stops.
Yes, exactly. And it's kind of encourages people to do a tour of the city just like they would in Pokemon Go, for the same reason. So I think there's a lot of value in this app, and it's more around fitness. Like Pokemon Go is like walking around, but this is like people actually getting more involved with fitness and potentially becoming more educated as well about how to maybe be more efficient doing certain activities. I think there's a lot of stuff that can be built out around this app, and in terms of the different types of activities that it supports. So Strava supports cycling, swimming, running, skiing, ton of different activities, hiking, and basically this app can accomplish the same thing, that it supports a lot of different activities, gathers the fitness data around that activity, and then that you calculate a relative effort from that, and then that effort is then used to develop the character. So there's a lot of pieces here for sure. And I think pulling in the people that would use Strava would be a very interesting thing. Now let's talk about how did you actually build the development team, because that's not an easy task either. Actually getting the developers onto your team, and it's kind of when you're first building a game, it's kind of a pie in the sky thing, because there's no actual product that's there to begin with. And you have to build this thing out. You probably have some deadlines. So can you walk us through the process that you guys initially went through building the game and launching it for the first time, and maybe what lessons you learned from that first launch, and how you're going to relaunch the app with all of these new features, and what are your expectations around that?
That's a great question. Oh, we're really digging back into my brain right now. So the process for launching Exantra World wasn't smooth at all. But back then, I had a co-founder. Right now, I'm by myself, but before I had a co-founder, and we just said, all right, so we know development costs money, and we probably need to raise like at least $30K.
Let's say that again. Quality development costs money.
Quality development costs money.
Absolutely. If you're going to keep the best talent around, you have to pay them a decent salary with the idea that they're perhaps going to get a chunk of the company, and then that's going to benefit them in the future. They're investing themselves and their time in hopes of some payout, but I think for some people it kind of goes beyond the monetary side of things, but getting the experience and the kind of character, literal character building of a person that it takes to take on such a project without being given all of the package of goods up front. Like, okay, you're going to give me a cushy salary, you're going to benefits, a big network of people across, let's say a large enterprise. How did you attract the developers to this team? And I think from our conversation yesterday, it sounded like one of them wanted to do game development in Taipei. And you've also talked about how it's kind of difficult to find game development work in Taipei.
In Taiwan right now. It is. There's actually a surplus of talent in Taiwan right now. And I'm talking to thousands of bachelor degree graduates, master degree graduates who can't find jobs because the economy is just so bad right now. These people are working at fast food restaurants, 7-Elevens, even though they're so qualified and they've got a rich education background. But so these two guys that I found, Tony and Jeffrey, they didn't have jobs when I found them. They've been looking for a while, and they were just thankful that they can have a job when I found them. They're like, oh, this guy is number one, he's doing an American startup, and I want that American opportunity because I could see myself going to America in the future. And number two, he seems like a really nice guy and a good boss, unlike some other bosses I had in the past who really worked the hell out of us, didn't care about us, only cared about profit. And these are bosses of game studios that they work for. They just weren't in the office. They just showed up whenever they wanted and worked them to the bone to meet deadlines. I'm not like that. So Tony and Jeffrey, they're kind of caught off guard, to be honest, when I did my interview with them. And they're like, this guy is, he's a cool kid. They're both older than me, just to put some context.
And how did you go about interviewing them? How did you go about... because of course at a big company like, for example, Google or something like that, you'll have an initial coding challenge, and that is used
traditionally.
Most people don't even make it through that coding challenge.
Technical coding challenge.
Yes, I actually took the Amazon coding challenge the other day.
You did.
And I was doing it at it was almost midnight. And not a good time to do really anything. And I did not. I had to scrape through my brain, kind of like you are digging up the history things in your I had to go back through and review just basic data structures in Java. And it was not. You had 90 minutes to do 2 coding problems. And I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, I guess I would say. So, but those coding challenges are quite difficult, and I think that you'll find a lot of times those coding challenges are not the knowledge is, even if you do really well on those, that it doesn't necessarily mean that you have the knowledge or the domain experience. Deep domain experience, that's a term I've heard thrown out before, that will be required of you when you actually join the team. It just will mean that you'll have a good sort of foundation, but whether you build on that or not is totally up to you.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably how the developers maybe have felt on your team as well, is like they probably had that freedom to build themselves and their skill set. Like, how did you actually go about validating their skill set? Did you care more about whether they were motivated or not?
Yeah, I'll tell you what my requirements were. Number one, you have to be able to speak English. Because my Chinese is like 6th grade level at best. And if we're going into like technical stuff, I don't know what you're saying.
Yes.
So number one, you got to speak English, and I'm so grateful that Tony, the guy that I reached out to after like 3 interviews, first 3 could not speak any English, and it was so hard for me. But Tony, thankfully, what he did was the past 10 years, he spent a lot of his free time watching Netflix and YouTube channels in English with English subtitles. So that's why, like, I was like, okay, Tony's got number one. Number two, he's done his own development studio in the past, actually. So he met those 2 requirements, and I was like, all right, I gotta take a risk. I'm running out of time. I gotta hire people fast.
Yeah.
And I just took a leap of faith with Tony. And then Jeffrey, I actually had Tony interview Jeffrey because Tony's got the coding knowledge, and the technical questions. So I lucked out, man.
That's really awesome. That sounds like a really awesome combination, in that you were able to get the person with the technical knowledge in, so that they could sort of help you field other people.
You're right.
To hire.
Yes.
And I mean, there's not really a better way to do it than that. And
this is chapter 2 of my story. Chapter 1 was really ugly. I don't know if we want to get into that.
Okay.
That was for Exontra World.
Did you just overspend?
We overspent, and we hired contractors.
Oh, okay. So like the problem with contractors are not, I mean, maybe you would agree, they're not so invested in the actual project.
Exactly.
And they're really just trying to meet the requirements. And once they meet the requirements, they fulfill the contract.
Exactly.
And then
they're off the grid. They don't respond.
The problem is that you lose. Yeah, exactly. You lose the original development team. Also, this actually, I believe, happened with Instagram. Is that this guy had somebody else develop Instagram for him? He was a photo guy that was going around teaching people how to do digital photography. Right when social media was starting to come about, and he had another team develop Instagram for him, and then they basically took the rights to it. Like, they basically just started developing it on their own.
No way.
And that was how they developed Instagram. So the idea is, like, if you want to develop something that focuses on, especially on a community, you definitely want to develop it like in-house and like have everybody there that's involved with the project, and like have, like, it would be cool to have the community managers come in to the studio and like interview you guys and like ask you guys about what features you're working on and take questions from the community. This is done with a lot of other games as well that I've seen, and just gives the community a little more insight into what's actually going on at
behind the scenes.
Development studio, and then people get to know the developers, then they kind of like I was talking about yesterday, follow them from project to project. Right. So that no matter what project they're working on, like, hey, I remember this guy developed this game in a really honest, way that was friendly to the player base. Yeah. And I want, this guy's now developing this game. Hey, let's go check out this game and give this a shot and see what it's like. So I think you build that relationship with your player base, but they have to, of course, know who you are and what you do and what things you look for in a game. Like, that's what they're interested in, right? Tetsuya Nomura, I think this is the guy that developed the characters Sora and I think Tidus from Final Fantasy X. Right. And people just like follow him around because he's a character design focus. So like if he's on a project and like people are interested in
Right.
it. And on that note, maybe let's go into some of the lore, the environment design,
Oh
the art, because that's where you bring your
My world.
focus
Yeah.
and your skill into the project.
Yeah.
Eddie actually does a lot of human-like sketches. Maybe not specifically for this project because it is a game and it is a virtual world.
But in the past, I did.
Right. So can you talk about your past with that and like how you did concept art for this project? Has that actually helped you pitch the project at all?
That's a good question. Yeah, so a little bit of background. I was actually a fine artist for most of my growing up days. Private art lessons, art contests.
Yeah.
With the traditional medium, pencils, pens, and just drawing people, drawing weird shit.
And I actually know this because I would come over to your house. Eddie lived around the corner from me from the time I was like 10 or 12 until the time I was like maybe 17 or 18, or the time that I had gone off to college. And I used to go over his house and I would see that he had all these hand-drawn sketches of all these people, and I was blown away at how human-like everything looked. So like Ed has been working on this for a very, very, very long time. And now it's kind of like coming into fruition, being able to do sketches for all of these games and develop all these environments.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so like he's been part of that journey, and after that I switched into digital, doing UI UX design, because I knew at some point I had to put my ideas down on like an interactive medium where people can touch, swipe through,
Zoom or flip through different pictures and art.
Pictures, pages to get the user experience. So back then I picked up Adobe Flash. We don't use that anymore for UI UX, but back in 2010, that's how I got started with UI UX.
You mean like Adobe Flash Player, or there's
there's it's kind of like what was it? I think it was just for user experience design and Flash animations.
Okay, for animations, I see.
But you could use that to build like software experiences.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't very
fun. Okay, I see, because you can build apps.
Like
web apps.
Kind of, without any code.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Nowadays we use Photoshop, Adobe XD, Figma, Sketch. Flash is like way out of the picture now. But so I moved into digital. I started building the UI UX for the game, like everything you see from buttons to screens to like features, and I was really hands-on on that for Exantra World. I did all the UI UX for Exantra World, and actually all of the art too. Like I drew all the animals, the characters, and eventually I burnt out. No, honestly.
Yeah, I mean that's a reality for all of us. We get so obsessed with our work, and we kind of get disconnected from the emotional side of what we're doing. Is it emotionally rewarding? And
the more you do it, the more desensitized you become.
Yeah. No, that's definitely. If you guys follow Porter Robinson, he's talked about that in some of his recent music. Talked about this obsession with your work, and don't let it overtake your life. Like try to find
some balance.
Try to find that balance.
Right.
So you hand drew all these environments, all these characters. How did you actually use that art in the game? And how did that translate from you actually drawing this art into you actually
putting it into the game?
Yeah,
so it's really simple. I just in Adobe Photoshop, I draw out the Titan, the helmets in different layers. Maybe its suit is in a different layer. So you can at least swap out helmets, swap out gear, weapons. You just draw different layers, and then send it to the developers, and they code it in as different elements. Yeah, and then the
Nice.
animals, we had like, how many did we have? 150 animals.
Wow.
We try to model it after Pokemon Go, but
150
with
different
animals. These are
Yeah.
real animals like pandas, tigers, anacondas, and drawing them with your hand and just putting them in the game as like level upable creatures that you can collect. Yeah, it was quite an experience.
Okay, so that's the game side of it, right? Is like collecting all of these creatures,
Yep.
and you like build your character, like all the different masks, all the different customization
Yeah.
for the character itself.
Right.
The environments is like where the actual matches are played.
Yes. So most of the environment was we weren't able to address that at all for version 1. Even though we really wanted to, and my co-founder and I were so crazy about the lore. We wrote so many scripts, created the story, the ship, the villains, the aliens. We just never were able to get enough resources to deliver that to players.
Okay, but you of course have all that material, and if it ever sees the light of day.
Yes, exactly. And unfortunately, my co-founder and I had a falling out because of how burnt out I got and how things just started to get strained between him and I. Like,
yeah, that's just reality, and
Right.
it's not like either of
our fault.
it's not either of the people. It's just a reflection of you being out of whack and not
overexerting ourselves.
Yes, because like we talked about, like there's no like recovery. Like the brain doesn't have time to recover, to resolve things, to decide what's important and what the next step is.
Right.
And it like sometimes we as humans we sort of go at each other because you want to
get acknowledged or.
Well, like it's really just a distraction. Like add in this distraction, social media can be a distraction in our lives. Like we just stare at a screen because we want that distraction
to decompress. Maybe
we want that distraction from other things that are going on in our life.
Yeah.
But then it just that pattern plays out, and then it tells us the story of like, hey, things are not actually going that well, but we just have. The noise level, in order to shut that out, the noise level has to increase, and it just results in unhealthy behavior when we just keep increasing that noise level.
Yeah.
Because even it becomes too much for us.
Right.
At some point.
Yeah, it does.
So it sounds to me like you didn't maybe retain all of the storylines or all of the content that you had worked on with the other co-founder, and that was kind of a way to say, hey, like I'm willing to let this go so that I can continue focusing on this project and focusing on what matters, and maybe realizing it's not like you're the ultimate creator of that material, so you can just recontextualize everything.
Well, actually, the story was his handiwork. Most of his fingerprints were on that story.
Okay.
And he is an extraordinary writer.
Right.
Not so much on the other side of things, like business. He's natural. He's a natural leader, but we had to both learn how to run the business on the operation side. But he was really good at writing, and I was really good at art. And I knew that, to honor him, I needed to bring it in to Ultra Titan. So we actually kept his scripts, and we're gonna release it for Ultra Titan. Nice. Yeah.
And I think perhaps that will sort of, maybe hopefully give him some closure as well to say hey, look at this amazing thing that you created,
exactly.
that made it into the final game,
exactly.
And the hope is that people will appreciate all the hard work and dedication that went into this game,
right?
Which leads us to the next step is so now you're going to relaunch this game. What is your strategy around launching the game?
Yeah.
How do you get people interested and invested in
more so than the first time around, right?
Yes. Like how do you get people invested in this? Because definitely there's value there. Like I was talking about, the fitness, like blending the fitness side of things with the gaming side of things. How do you intend to? Are you going to go out and do like pop-ups, for example? Are you going to go to a conference? Like where are you going to go and talk to people about this app and get people excited about it?
Yeah, this is something I actually wrestle with a lot because, and it's kind of an identity question. Are we a gaming studio or are we a fitness company? And we walk that gray line every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get pulled into more of the fitness side because we remember our core mission is to get people to better themselves. Other days we get pulled into the gaming side because it's just what we're naturally passionate about. And it's what keeps us excited every day. So there's this tug of war every day on like, oh, do we cater to more of the fitness people, or do we cater towards more of the gamers, or do we somehow keep walking this middle ground? But I just want to say that in the end, I built this game to better myself, and I'm really, really stoked about when this drops. We're actually dropping our first internal test build next week, and I'm going to take this. I'm going to force Tony. I already told him this. I'm going to force both of these guys, because they don't work out at all.
Yeah.
to go with me to work out and level up their Titan.
Right on.
Yeah. So, I forgot, what was your question again?
Oh, I was just like, what are we bringing? How are you going? Yeah, how are you going to launch this? Are you going to conferences? Are you going to do a pop up?
Right.
Like we were joking yesterday about handing out masks and like giving people like a little card to go either follow on social media or actually go and download the app. Like give people some sort of incentive to download the app and give them like a little starter pack.
Yeah.
To start playing the game that they kind of get, and it's exclusive to people that show up at this pop-up. Just an example, or like going to a conference and showcasing the app and like what you can do, and have people come and work out at the conference, or it could be a fitness expo, and have them like use the app and then show them the results like after they do their workout, or they, you have something set up for them to use.
I love that. I actually, for some reason, even though I'm like not very fit, I gravitate towards those expos and like that world of fitness. Yeah. Something about it just like, it's intoxicating. Just being around.
It's an energy. It's just like constant source of energy, and people are excited, and people are like pumped.
They're amped. They're always amped.
Exactly. So, exactly. There's that strong sense. It's like a ping pong, like you're ping ponging off each other's like energy and excitement and motivation, and you're seeing people that are physically developed, and that makes you want to better yourself more. It's just, there's just a feeding off process that happens for sure. Yeah. And so
I'm interested to see like what kind of impact or what happens when we step onto the floor if we have our booth there. I don't know, because we're bringing in something that's never been brought into that fitness expo before. Yeah. Like a digital version of yourself. People are going to be like, what the hell is that? Please explain it to me, because it's so fascinating. Yeah. And I want to learn more. And I think it's going to be, we might face a little bit of pushback, but I have a good feeling.
I think it's interesting because it gamifies it the same way that Strava gamifies fitness. It's like, oh, you're like,
competing against.
Sure. Yeah, no, it is like it's like where people are like showing off, like, oh, here's all my stats. You can see my heart rate stats, my power zones. You can see all of those stats. All of that is available to everybody. So when I post it and I see my heart rate zones, everybody else can see that. Yeah. and Strava incentivizes people to post things publicly because otherwise it doesn't count towards different challenges. So they have challenges on Strava where you can get specific items. You could get a coupon.
Right.
And they've got this really nice ecosystem where they're doing favors for kind of everybody around. Okay, but another battery died. They're doing favors for everybody around fitness, whether that's, somebody selling a cycling bib or, running glasses.
Yeah.
They've got different partners that they work with and a lot of integrations to where Strava is just kind of the focal point of all of your fitness data, and also like companies that are trying to have people try their product. They give them a coupon like, hey, try out this, buy this pair of cycling shorts, or get you get $50 off a pair of running glasses. That's awesome. Something like that. So
have you actually claimed any of those rewards before?
I haven't, because I liked, if it was something that was a high quality product,
you would
then
consider it?
I would.
Okay.
We're gonna take another short break. We're gonna switch out battery again.
Break time. Nice. Oh shoot. Oh.
Okay, so part 3 of the Humanitree podcast, episode 1. Again, we're back with Eddy, and now we're going to discuss.
It's kind of rotating.
This keeps rotating. What's going on, bro? Let me just check the angle real quick. Oh yeah, it just keeps rotating.
It's like self-adjusting.
Yeah, we've got a gimbal, guys, that's holding a GoPro. So we're trying to get it to stop.
It's trying to scan.
Oh well.
Whoa.
Swivel. Okay, guys, we're back with the Humanitree podcast, and this is part 3. The final part, we're going to talk about funding the project and how Eddy's been able to use his art and the original project to actually go to investors and get them interested. Can you kind of explain the monetization process around this? And of course, it's, you want to build something where everybody wins.
Yeah.
The players win, the investors win, the developers win too.
Right.
You don't want to create a system that results in a lot of developer backlash.
Yeah.
So how did you go about navigating those waters and find that balance while still appealing to investors? And can you just talk about that process?
Right. I think what I try to focus on to help me, like, what my compass is just trying to do what's best for the customer, and everything else follows.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone's heard that before. If you're in a startup, like, listen to your customer, make sure you're customer centric, and like the money will come to you.
Yeah.
Because that means you're providing them value, and they're willing to pay for a product that gives them value. And if that's like already coming up in a form of traction, then investors will flock to it.
Yeah.
They'll be like, oh, guys, I can see that their customer base loves the product, and if we put in more money into this team, they can get even more customers.
Yes.
Who are lookalikes of that
Right.
customer, and it snowballs from there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like we just talked about yesterday, proving that out, having that user base that's dedicated, you can scale it out from there.
Yeah.
That's basically what you're going to the investor to do, is to scale something that's already been built, like something that's already been proven out.
Right.
And it's the safest for them as well, because they say, well, if this has worked on a small scale, then perhaps it can work on
a bigger scale,
on a larger scale as well. And so is the game in a beta right now state where you guys are kind of keeping track of the people that are currently playing this game?
We have Exantra World that launched 2 years ago. It's not being supported. We're not doing updates on it, but it's still free to use for the people who originally paid for it.
Right.
And they're still using it to track their workouts, get rewards, level up, collect animals. So I think that's something that we're trying to sundown. We're trying to close it, and then eclipse it with Alter Titan, which is going to be an alpha or internal testing alpha next week.
Okay, so when you say sundown, you mean that you going to shut down?
We're going to shut it down.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're moving people over.
We're migrating those old accounts to Alter Titan.
Got you.
Yeah.
So that's pretty badass. So for people out there that are still playing Exantra World, your account is going to be migrated to this new game.
Yeah. And
you retain all of your rewards.
We're going to have to cut some things and wipe some things to make it balanced for new players.
Right.
Because the people going in from Exantra World to Alter Titan, they're like level 60, and they've got like beast habitants, epic habitants. They're just way OP, so we're gonna do some kind of wipe.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that happens in a lot of games. You get to retain certain items. Right. You get maybe special items for coming over from the previous game. And basically, you have a badge in the previous game that is going to give you special rewards in the new game. Yeah. It's also then players get to kind of get a fresh start, and they have a reason to keep playing.
Yes.
If they're kind of like
coming in.
Yeah, more reset.
Yeah.
But then they also get to keep some of the special rewards, which gives them a further incentive to stay, and they sort of get to experience everything new. It's like, okay, I buy the new Final Fantasy game, and or I buy the new expansion. It's not so much like that. It's more like they're coming into this game like
brand new world.
Yeah. Brand new world with different rules and as well.
An actual story that you can play through, an actual universe that you can explore on the ship. It takes place in space where you're a future volunteer soldier trying to find the next habitable planet for humanity. Because this alien race just wiped out Earth. So it's going to be so epic that you can actually, in 3D, roam around the ship, like interact with NPCs, fight off aliens eventually, and just train. And I think it's going to be like, even for the players who are with us in the past, it's going to be brand new.
So this is a 3D game that's on mobile?
Yeah.
That's pretty badass.
Yeah, we're building it with Unity, so it's going to be totally 3D, and hopefully if optimization and I think it should be okay, because a lot of games are still 3D and on mobile, like PUBG, Fortnite, they moved over to mobile. And
I'm curious, because you started talking about optimization. Is this a game that's going to suck the life out of your battery? Have you guys? I'm sure you guys have done some sort testing, of testing as far as battery on like different phones.
Yeah, we're trying to. We're trying to test on the lower end devices too. Yeah, because we know some players, not all our players have high end devices, so.
I mean, it's good just to even have that data to know what your player base looks like and what type of devices the players are playing on, because then you can optimize the game for that.
Yes.
But of course, you always want to think about like the newer generation of phones, and
what's possible.
Soon we have like 5G phones coming up, so that's
shit.
that's gonna improve. It's gonna improve the networking on these phones, which is probably important for your game. So your game's probably gonna benefit a lot from that upgrade.
Yeah.
But of course, first you're just like, well, how much memory does the average phone have? What's the processor?
Right.
And then you do all of your testing on that.
Yes.
And then boom, like you don't really have to like think too much. You just kind of do all of your testing and development in that on that environment, and then you don't really have to think about much else.
Exactly. But we have to consider all these things.
Cool. So we've sort of got an idea of what your strategy is for approaching investors. You probably have some sort of investor deck.
Yep.
That explains the monetization process behind the game.
Just working on that this morning before this interview. Yeah.
Cool. And okay, so now comes the launch. Do you have a strategy around the time that you're going to launch this? I mean, we just finished Chinese New Year, so a lot of people are on holidays right now, or just coming back from holidays. Yeah. Did you guys consider that timing at all?
No, because our launch is still 3 months away in April. That's what we promised.
Okay.
That's what we promised our Kickstarter backers. April.
Yeah.
For beta. Yeah. So we're just trying to work small with the customers that we have right now and fulfill our promise with those guys first.
Right. And that's definitely the most important thing.
Yeah.
Do you have a sort of campaign leading up to that to try to
maybe emails
expand the player base? Okay, so like a newsletters. Okay. Cool.
As for expanding the player base, I think we might take it easy on that for up until this winter, and then once we feel people are having fun, then we'll this is confidence that we can actually put it out there and start scaling. Yeah,
that makes total sense. But it's all about people having fun, and part of that fun is the balance, how balanced the game is.
Yes.
So then you kind of have to see that in action first.
Right. Balance the combat, balance how fast rewards are coming after your workout, balance the different player types. You got people who are fitness freaks, you got people who are couch potatoes. How do we reconcile all those differences? So
right.
It's a lot.
Focus more on if the person is actually improving, or if they're improving their fitness or not.
Yeah, that's number one. Yeah.
Relative to themselves, you said, how do you basically discount someone's fitness level that they're starting
off with? Yeah, that's I'm looking forward to that because I don't know how that's gonna go.
Well, we'll definitely be following you guys through the launch event. We're gonna do another interview after the game is launched, just to check back in with Eddy and see how things are going, and give you guys more insight into the game development. I also have plans to do some interviews with some other entrepreneurs around the Taiwan area here, Taipei.
Yeah.
Eddie is the first one that I've interviewed, and thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Until next time.
Peace.